As a society, we tend to over-attribute pain to structural damage and injury, even when we know that an injury healed long ago or that the level of damage couldn't possibly account for the level of pain. But in reality, there are millions of people with severe chronic pain who show absolutely no signs of tissue damage in the body. Migraine, fibromyalgia, sciatica, and nerve pain are just a few of the conditions that fall into this category. The symptoms of these conditions are processed in the brain, just like every other type of pain is. So they're just as real and just as severe, and they can often be more frustrating since they don't leave many physical clues behind. But we do know a bit more than we used to about these types of pains. For instance, brain imaging studies have shown significant differences in brain activity while these pain states occur. So there are definitely physical changes happening in the body. They're just changes we're not as familiar with. These sorts of changes are what we call a physiological change in the body. They include temporary, reversible states like changes in muscle tension, nerve firing patterns, brain activity, and blood flow. Despite the fact that these are hard to identify in medical imaging, physiological changes can create real, severe symptoms. But the most important thing to remember about this type of change is that it is reversible and temporary, and even though it can create very intense pain, it does not cause permanent tissue damage. A wide array of factors can cause a physiological change to take place in the body. So let's start by looking at a simple example: stress. We all know and acknowledge that stress can come along with some physical reactions, like tense shoulders, feelings of nausea, or headaches. Just like with pain, these lower-level changes are happening because of your brain. And we know the brain is constantly processing contextual information, including what kind of stress is going on in your life. So whether you realize it or not, your brain is unconsciously and automatically transmitting this information to the rest of your body all the time. It does this through a chemical network that's kind of like a very fast paper route. Think of the brain as the publisher. It writes and prints out the newspaper, which contains all of the latest information that it wants the body to know about. In this case, the newspaper might say that you have a huge deadline coming up, or that you're in the middle of a fight with your significant other. Then your brain creates its own little paper boys called ligands, who travel through the body delivering the newspaper cell to cell. Tiny mailboxes called receptors are sitting on each cell waiting to pick up the paper. And then as soon as the paper comes, these receptors pass it along to the cell so the cell can read it and decide what to do next. All of this is happening automatically. So our cells are constantly receiving these updates and deciding whether or not they should do anything about it. Based on the information they get, a cell can choose to do all kinds of things: divide itself, create extra proteins, pretty much whatever it wants. In short, that means that contextual information, like a strong emotion or a stressful situation, can physically alter what's happening in our body on a cellular level. Multiply that across a whole bunch of cells, and you can see how this can really start to affect the body. This chemical network of information explains how these lower-level stress responses occur, but it also explains how the body is capable of triggering much bigger responses. It can make us feel pain in places where there's no injury, tense up our muscles, redirect blood flow, or even trigger a migraine. On the other hand, this network is also capable of reversing those same physiological changes, just like when your shoulders relax as soon as you remove yourself from a stressful situation. So these messages sent out by the brain play a very critical role in both pain creation and pain relief. The placebo effect is a great example of how powerful the brain's influence can be, and how it can physically alter what's happening in the body based on contextual information alone. When a sham medication is taken, it gives the brain cues that relief is on the way, which leads the body to relax and in many cases actually activates the body's natural ability to heal itself. Here's Dr. Torwager explaining exactly how the placebo effect works inside of the body.
Some of the most dramatic results that we've seen in our lab are that if you take a sham medication, then you release opioids in the brain. So the brain has its own internal pharmacy, right? We take morphine, and that's an external drug, or fentanyl or remifentanil or any one of those different things, oxycodone, hydromorphone, etc. And those drugs are external drugs that act on receptors in our brains that are intimately linked with pain relief, but also with feeling good and engaging in a positive way in life events. And the reason that we have those receptors is because your brain makes its own. So the brain has its own internal pharmacy, so to speak, that you can engage. And the reason that internal pharmacy exists is to translate your knowledge about where you are and what's happening to you and what's the bigger picture into lower level changes in your brain, where the brain is saying, how much pain should I be feeling right now? Should it be more or should it be less? Given what I have to do and where I am. And so opioids help to implement that. And so getting a sham treatment, a placebo skin cream, can cause endogenous opioid release.
Okay. So the brain is sort of just taking in the information of something that's supposed to help is here and then making the decision to create or experience less pain?
Exactly. That's right. And a lot of work in neuroscience has really shown and fleshed out the idea that what you're engaging in terms of your life. So what does the pain mean to you? Are you in the midst of, a fight or a kind of social standoff, right? Social engagement. Are you able to sort of focus on the pain and stew on it and sort of amplify it and heal, or do you have to do something else that's very demanding, right? Where feeling pain would be distracting and even harmful for you. So based on those things, that what we call the environmental context, your brain has the capacity to turn up and turn down pain, sometimes quite dramatically.
It's amazing to think about how drastically the brain can change what's happening in the rest of the body, both by creating severe symptoms and by relieving them. Let's do a quick recap of all these concepts. People think that pain is associated with tissue damage, but a large portion of chronic pain doesn't involve tissue damage in the body at all. Even so, there are still physiological changes happening to create the pain, like differences in brain activity and neural pathways. Stress is an everyday example of something that can cause physiological changes in the body. The brain sends out the message about what's going on to all the cells in the body, and they respond accordingly. This chemical network of information can account for much bigger physical responses in the body as well, like migraines or nerve pain. But luckily, it also has the power to unlock your body's internal pharmacy and help to reverse or heal symptoms.